I'll just say a few introductory words while people are getting tea and coffee and things. My name, for those who don't know me, my name is Nicholas True, Councillor True. I am the leader of Richmond Council, and I'm here with a number of colleagues. This is one of a series of what we call Leaders' Question Times. And the idea really is that we go around the borough and we listen to you. It's not a quiz show. We'll answer the questions that you put as best we can. If you don't know the answer, I'm not too afraid to say I don't know the answer, because all of you people, you good people in this room, will know far more about aspects of Heathfield and Whitton than I will. And I think that we are here to serve as a council, so we're here to listen and exchange views and try to answer questions as best we can. Now, some questions have been pre-submitted and pre-selected. I can assure you at Slide Question Time we haven't had anything to do with that. And any question or any point that's been covered in other questions submitted, we'll be able to cover later in the meeting. The whole question of pre-selection is just to ensure that the meeting covers a whole range of issues and one issue doesn't get squeezed out by others. I won't say any more except say thank you very much for coming. It really makes it worth all our while, that you take the trouble to come and to give us your views, ask us your questions and exchange ideas. I'm very grateful for that. And without more ado, I'll hand over to David Cloak, who's extremely kindly agreed to be the kind of, I suppose, David Dimbleby, is it, for this occasion. We'll call him, we'll let him keep the play though, but over to you, David.
Thank you very much. Welcome to you all. I'm not a relation of any other Dimbleby. Welcome to the third Leaders' Question Time. Can you all hear?
Speak up, please. Yeah.
I'll speak up, please. Is that better? I'm used to having a little clip-on thing here. I'm Father David Cloak, the Reverend David Cloak. I'm the vicar of St Philip and St James Church, which serves the northern half of Whitton. The other half of Whitton and Heathfield is served by St Augustine's, which is situated behind us. We regard ourselves as the parish church of Whitton because we have the high street. So it's a great joy to be here with you all and to share in this, and I'm delighted to have been asked. I'm here because I'm independent, I'm impartial, and I will act as such on both sides of this job. And I would ask that, as questions are fielded, that we approach the responses as we will the questions with a generosity of attention. And I will be very direct if there's any bawling and shouting and screaming and swearing. I'm easily offended and it's Lent. It's just me then. I ought to tell you, because of housekeeping, that in the event of an emergency, the fire escapes are behind you, and if you leave by the two doors with the running people signs, that you want to take a right-hand turn and follow the people who are faster. Would be my best advice. I'm advising them to go around. I'm going to just explain to you how this evening is going to work, because it's going to be broken into two particular sessions. In a moment I'm going to welcome the first question, which has been pre-submitted, and then we will have a time for those pre-submitted questions, and we will dedicate an hour to those questions. I will invite the inquirer to stand and make their question. We have a wonderful and glamorous microphone assistant at the back. Just give her a moment so that you have a microphone before you, so that all may hear. The panel will then be invited to respond, after which time the questioner will be entitled, or will be invited if they wish to submit a further question to supplement their first question, with each question being given 10 minutes to be worked through, which is plenty of time, as we've got a lot to get through. So I will be very direct on timing, incredibly direct, otherwise I should be direct. Once those questions have been submitted and answered, and re-questioned and answered, there will be about 40 minutes during which time there will be a time for open questions from the floor, and I will do my best to identify you by the way you are dressed, and I apologise if I get you wrong, and sorry if I point my finger at you. It's not something I do normally, but I need to once again to make sure that you have a microphone in front of you. I think it's right for you. Is that everything? Are you clear? A question please from John Cummings.
Thank you. Right, if you forgive me, I will alter my pre-submitted question, but only by a few semantics. My name is John Cummings. I've lived in the borough for 30 years. My children went to this school, went to Whitton School. My wife teaches classes in the community centre next door. I shop in the high street, and in fact, yesterday I bought a cream cake, pasta and a hairdryer. I'll get there in a moment. It's at the end of the day, being as you're impatient, my question is simply, when people ask me where I live, I say Hounslow, because I'm one of the many residents of TW4. Now, on your flyer, it's your vision, your Whitton. I would like to be part of that. Well, why do I have to keep referring to that I live in Hounslow? When my mail's not delivered, I go into Hounslow sorting office to get it. I want to be part of Whitton.
Yes, well, I obviously do understand that very much. I mean, funny enough, where I live in part of East Sheen is the area I represent. There is part of the ward that is in Richmond that would like to have a postal address in Sheen. So I completely understand that. I should say that the preamble is, I mean, the Your Whitton thing is part of a process which is really a new thing we're trying to do, which is to enable local communities like people in Whitton and Heathfield to say to us, to the council, what is important, and then to embed it in what we call a village plan. Some of that will have serious planning implications, so the planning committee will have to take that into account when they're adopted as planning documents. Other things are things that you would like to see in your area which may be aspirational and we'd all like to see happen, like the 110 bus route, for example. On the postcode, I mean, the problem is that it's not something, as you know, that the council itself determines. It's entirely in the hands of the Royal Mail. But I do know it's a very long-standing issue, as you say. I mean, under successive councils of different political persuasions, there has been a campaign to try and get the Royal Mail to look at this again. So they have, I'm not familiar with it, haven't brought it with me, but there is a specific Royal Mail code of practice and process about how people can request a change. But I think we certainly understand that we should have a coherence ideally in the area. Unfortunately, it's not something that's directly within the control of the council, but we will certainly very happily include that within the vision of Whitton, and Whitton and Heathfield, that people would like to see that done. Certainly, council will continue to make representations, will make representations.
Do I have any further questions?
No, just to say it's the postcode address file code of practice, which is available online.
Can I just ask anyone to introduce themselves, because I haven't got a clue who is getting.
Well, I'm very sorry. I did introduce myself. My name's Nicholas. Yes, and I thought that the other characters would introduce themselves as they step forward. But just to prove that I know who my colleagues are, I will introduce them. This is Councillor Gareth Evans, who's this is ridiculous title, Cabinet Member, which makes us all seem completely pompous and ridiculous. Actually, we have to be called Cabinet Member by law. It's a ridiculous law passed by Tony Blair's government that people doing these jobs had to be Cabinet Member. We're just the people in charge, or given a temporary charge of brief. So Gareth is Cabinet Member for Community, Business and Culture. Then then there's Paul Hodgins here, is responsible for schools and under fives education. So questions on schools to Paul. Then Pamela Fleming is, sorry to use the title again, Cabinet Member for Environment, Planning and Parks. So if there's environmental, planning, street scene issues, she'll be picking those up. And then at the end, Chris Harrison, who's responsible for highways and transport. And I'm sure there'll be a few questions for Chris as well. So that's who we are. Sorry to be rude enough not to introduce us all before.
We have a question from Ray Asher.
Hello, good evening. First of all, for those who know me, my name's Alan Wright, it's not Ray Asher at all. Ray couldn't make it here this evening, so he's asked me to deputise and ask his question for him. Which he's got in part wrong, so I'll alter it very slightly. His question is, why are you wanting us to believe that you as the council are doing such a great job to close Whitton Community Centre? The name of the place says it all. The council are going to destroy the community centre if we decide to change the community centre, which we part paid for, to be built, etc. A sum of money which we will not be able to get paid, and therefore have turned the running of the council into a business. If you really want the people that put you in office to believe that you are regarding the village concept, let's work together to save the community centre, keep it open and not close it. Thank you.
Alan, thank you for that question. Obviously, the applause shows a sense of feeling for the centre, and so I'm very glad that you've asked the question today so that we can clear up this matter. The simple point of fact is that we aren't intending to close the centre. That's the short answer. Please forgive me if I now go on to a slightly longer answer as well. From my understanding, the centre is owned by the council, but is run by the WCA for a number, and they run it for a number of organisations who can use that facility. The rent subsidy, so far at the moment, the rent has been assessed as £58,000, and so therefore the council has provided that £58,000 as a rent subsidy. Now, what the council is doing in general across our services is we are moving from grants, giving of grants, to a commissioning-based structure. And what that means is we no longer give organisations money and say, please spend this as you would like. What we do instead is we look at the needs of the residents in that community and we say, we will provide funding for organisations who will deliver on those needs. And so you can see there's a change of emphasis here in the way that we are moving forward. Now, we're really lucky across the borough to have so many voluntary organisations working in our communities. And we've therefore been working very hard with those voluntary organisations to make sure that they understand and they move with us across from this grant to this commissioning structure. We've put as much training and help in as we can. We've already put in place what we call transitional funding, just to tide people over from moving from that grant structure to the commissioning structure. Now, with the community centre, what we've seen is that actually the WCA is not yet in a position to really grasp and run in this new world, as it were, of commissioning. So as a result, what's been decided is that the rent subsidy will continue for another 2 years until March 2016, and then during that time we will continue to work with WCA to make sure that they are in a position to apply for the right commissioning so that they will continue to fund the centre. We did an initial analysis of needs in 2013, and that confirmed that absolutely there is the right level of needs, and those needs are being delivered by the WCA, so all the signs are good. that after March 2016 they will be able to apply for funding, and they should receive that commissioning facility. So it's a long-winded answer to say that we will be continuing with that rent subsidy till March 2016, so we aren't going to be closing the centre. And then during that period of time, we will be working to make sure that the WCA is in a position to apply for the commissions after that period of time. And so and that's where we are at the moment.
Well, I'd just like to add something very small, and that is that currently our lease runs for the next year and a half. You're saying that you've given us another 2 years. In essence, you've given us an extra 6 months. 6 months longer than the current 1.5 years that the lease has got to run. It would be helpful to have something longer than that.
Okay, I mean, I was obviously just referring to the rent subsidy rather than the lease. I wasn't aware, as Nick said earlier, we haven't come with every single answer, but what I can say is that I hear what you say, and I will take it away and I'll ask officers to have a look at that for you.
I mean, I think Garrett's given us a clear answer. I mean, there isn't, I don't know who, I understand that there has been some confusion and concern, and there is no question of the centre closing, but I do think that with the village plan process, if it gets embedded in that village plan, that the people of Whitton and Heathfield want to have a community centre, and I'm sure that's what they want, because we want to have that community spirit around the borough, then I'm sure that will be incorporated, if you like, as a given in terms of the community need in this area. So that really is, we can also feed that through and reinforce that in the village planning process. I think very important point. We'll certainly take that away, and I'm sorry if any anxiety has been caused. I would apologise. I never afraid to apologise. I think that politicians are hired hands, and if there's been any concern or anxiety caused or to anybody, I apologise for that, and I hope you'll clear it up with your friends.
Jim Boothroyd.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone hear me? Good show. My name is Jim Bocock. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to put this to you. I've put it in more in the form of a statement, but perhaps if I could put it in a question. Would the council consider really outside Whitton railway station, a dedicated drop-off and pick-up only parking space should be provided in order that residents can pick up and drop off at the station member of their families without endangering themselves through double parking. Currently, if you're trying to park, invariably back taxis have been considering taking all the spaces, and with the new high street restrictions, you need to park some distance away. Back provide a very valuable service, which I use. However, there are 6 spaces outside the station, and I strongly contend that 2 of these should be drop-off spaces only, with no parking restriction between 6:30 a.m. and 11:30 p.m. The whole idea of this is for members of the family, but female members here, it matters not, but especially late in the evening with heavy luggage, and they can alight safely at the station. If back require a reservoir of taxis, then they can do what other firms manage to do and get their vehicles to park a distance away and call them up on the RT when required. They could then drive up to the restricted parking space outside the station, pick up their fare and immediately vacate the space. As it is at present, it's only a matter of time before an accident occurs. Can I just add a little bit more to that? As I say, there's 6 parking spaces there. There's no reason why 2 couldn't be dedicated to drop-off and pick-up. 2 could be allocated to taxis, and 2 for loading and unloading, because there are businesses outside. Right opposite those spaces, the bus stop is no longer recessed, and it takes the whole of that carriageway up. children, I've been in this borough 37 years, my children went to this school. If they were cycling and there's double parking, that is a lethal part of the high street. Thank you.
Given some of the highways questions are sort of technical because it's a legal considerations about what you can and can't do on the highways. So what I'll do, if I may, is read out a formal answer from one of our highways officers, and then we can just talk informally after that without a suggestion.
We can't hear you.
Okay, I'll try and speak closer to the microphone. So this is a response from our manager of highways design in the borough. We will give consideration to your suggestion, but there are some known problems with enforcing this type of drop-off point. The problems stem from the ability to control the activity and enforcement of keeping the space clear. There are a number of options, none of which work particularly well, and there are a huge strain on enforcement commitments. If parking was limited to 5 to 10 minutes to allow for dropping off and picking up, there would need to be a CEO, that's a civil enforcement officer, actually for people of a certain generation, that used to be called traffic wardens. So there would have to be a traffic board constantly posted there to ensure that it was being used. Because what tends to happen with pick-up and drop-off points, sometimes commercial vehicles park in their vans doing deliveries, and so you just have to have somebody in attendance all the time, which is rather expensive. If a double yellow line were put there instead of pick-up and drop-off point, this actually allows picking up and dropping off, but drivers don't understand it, and it actually stops people from picking up and dropping off. So what I can commit to is that our highways officers will talk to the taxi firm and talk them through the alternatives of their behaviour, because if that is the case, that their vehicles are constantly blocking the parking outside that station, we're going to have to do something. And that may not be to their liking, but we're going to have to make them aware of what's going to happen. So the best thing I can do is just commit that our highways officers will talk to the taxi firm about how they deploy and marshal the logistics of their taxis out directly outside the station.
Yes, please.
They've got a drop-off and pick-up outside of Richmond station, and that seems to be working quite well. As far as that location is concerned, I hear what you say. However, they are licensed, those cabs, to operate. There would be a possible inducement to them to make sure that they're not caught parking in that position. It would certainly assist you if you were negotiating with them to mention that fact. I mentioned at the end of my question, and this is not an anti-back, as I say, they provide a valuable service, and I do use them myself. There are 6 parking spaces there. 2 could be for the drop-off, 2 could be for the taxis, 2 for loading and unloading. And that would be quite reasonable. Everyone then should be happy. We have no problems enforcing parking in the rest of the high street. I don't see why that should be any different.
Well, as I said, I will commit that our senior highways guys who deal with parking and enforcement will go and talk to that taxi firm and think about the options. That's how we commit to that.
We can really say that they will look at this option and this.
Yes, yes.
We have a question from the gentleman from the striker side. Bear with me.
I'm only going to say that because of BAT's position in the station itself, they can actually police this themselves quite simply because they're controlling this actually faces those spaces. So What I was saying was that the BATS control centre is in the station approach, and they can see those spaces outside, so they can actually police this quite well if they was asked the right questions.
I suspect they may not be aware quite, I don't know, must be the spokesman, of the resentment that many people are having. So it's a question of making them aware of it, and then presumably they can issue instructions to their staff about what they do. But we'll get one of our guys onto it to look at the situation and talk to the company.
And now the final question from the gentleman there.
Before the changes to the high street, it was always a mystery to me how bats always parked there, even when there were no parking during the day. It was definitely marked no parking, and yet there were always their taxis lined up, and they were never penalised for doing that, which leads you to wonder what was going on. That's one point. The other point is you haven't mentioned anything about the suggestion that the bus stops be cut back. Now, my concern about the buses is not that they set in the middle of the road and they stop the traffic. And I know the mindset of the people who plan, they want to slow the traffic. But my worry is that the way that cyclists cycle, one of them's going to whiz round those buses and be mown down by a car coming the other way, and we're going to have a fatality. And it'll be because the buses are stuck in the middle of the road when cyclists are in a hurry. And I'm talking about cyclists, I'm not talking about motorists now. They can wait. As indeed can fire engines and ambulances. I saw one with all the blues and who's going, it was stuck behind the bus and it couldn't go forward, even though it was on a call. So, are we going to get those buses laid back? That's what should be happening.
Okay, well, part and parcel of looking at the parking bays outside the station will involve looking at the position of the bus stop. So, as I say, we have senior people who understand all this. If it, however, it transpires that we're better to shorten the bus stop and move it slightly, I should tell you that we're not masters of our own destiny, because the disposition of the bus stops is down to London Buses and Transport for London. They have the power of veto over anything we suggest.
Not whether they're recessed or not.
But
Not whether the bus stops
all
are
I can
recessed.
promise you is that the analysis by these officers will include the whole situation both sides of the road and the disposition of the bus stop.
I'm afraid we have to move on now for a question from Mr. Jerry Keats, please. A question from Jerry Keats, please.
Hi, Jeremy Keats, 50% of the Whitton Village Postcode and Twitter feeds. My question is around planning on the high streets. I'm going to refer to things called A1, which generally means shops, and A2, which generally means banks, estate agents, and also betting shops. So Richmond Council approved the change of use of number 16 to 18 High Street Whitton from A1 to A2. The council received 16 objections from the local community against its application online. The Richmond Town Centre health check report shows that Whitton already had an above average number of A2 uses, while allowing more A2 uses to proliferate on the high street would damage the significant investment the council has invested in Whitton. The result is that in a line of 5 individual shops, 4 are now occupied by betting shops, next door to a public house and opposite another betting shop. This surely represents an over-concentration of uses. In this instance, in my opinion, the council has ignored both the wishes of the local community and its own planning policies. What difference will the creation of a Whitton supplementary planning document actually make, and what is Richmond Council doing to protect high streets from the proliferation of A2 uses, in particular betting shops?
Thank you. Well, let me say first of all that I have immense sympathy for the points that you made. In fact, we've had a similar case in Barnes with where they got too many estate agents. The trouble is, of course, that we have to observe planning policies. And in this particular case, that was the reason. It wasn't considered that there was an over-concentration of betting shops and planning. No, this is what I'll say. This was the reason it was given by the planning officers. And of course, if we don't observe planning policies, what happens then is there is an appeal, and so frequently they're overturned by the government inspector. But, I mean, it's exactly because of decisions like that, and because we want to protect our high streets, that we're embarking on this whole supplementary planning document process. So firstly, I should also say that we have just signed a petition that has been supported for all of the London boroughs, where we're calling on the government to introduce a separate use class of betting shops, so that in fact, you know, A2 uses wouldn't be able to be transferred to betting shops. But on the supplementary planning documents, so I think there are sort of two aspects here. Firstly, we can, as we did in fact when we were preparing the last development planning plan, we looked at some changes to key shopping frontages. As you know, there's key shopping frontages and secondary shopping frontages, and we made some changes. And this is something, again, that in view of all of the representations and that have come up and what you've told us during the village planning process, we would therefore look, when we're reconsidering the development management plan, at some changes again at key shopping frontages. But the other thing that we consider is an Article 4 direction, which is again a planning process that can be used. It has to be approved by the Secretary of State if we consider that there's an area, and in this case it would be, you know, too many betting shops. So there are things, and by getting the views and knowing what people and the vision that people have for their high streets and what they want to see, this does actually give us, and indeed the planners, when it comes to a planning committee, far more ability to go to the inspector to defend a decision and say, but you know, we have been told, we have this supplementary planning document, this is the character that people want to see in their high streets.
Jerry, any further questions?
No, I mean, I think my opinion is about getting the basics right. I don't think in this circumstance creating a supplementary planning document will make very little difference if you can't actually do the basics. And that is a very basic thing. I think the views of the community were clear. 60 responses online. It's not 100, it's not 50, it's more than 5, more than 10, and I think it shows good engagement and involvement from the local community. But there was reference to the views of the local community in that planning meeting, and that's about the situation which we now have, which I believe is damaging to the high street.
President, coming on the more general point, I personally have very great sympathy with what you were saying. I probably think I'm a terrible old fuddy-duddy if I say I only go in a betting shop on Grand National Day, like most of the rest of the population. My old mum used to like me to put a bet on for her, and now I've lost her. I suppose I won't ever go in one now. But since the Gambling Act, the whole climate in this country about gambling is completely changed. It was a terrible piece of legislation. I don't want to knock the Tony Blair government, but it was a Tony Blair government. And I like my sport. You can't turn on television without, you know, Betfred or whatever they are, 365. You can't even watch any sort of sport. We're absolutely wall-to-wall gambling advertisements. These gambling firms and betting shops are now going through not only Whitton High Street, but generally right across London and other places, seeking outlets where they can actually make money. And I think I agree with you, it's particularly sinister when they crop up near pubs, frankly. The situation is that we discussed it among London leaders of all parties a few months ago, and we are making really strenuous representations to the government to change the law, as Pamela said, so we can have specific designated national powers in relation to betting shops to control them. Given the way the government's going, I think in the wrong direction, allowing too much of a free-for-all on planning. I've been pretty upfront in campaigning against some of the government's planning changes, because I think my job as leader of the council is to represent local people, not to vote the party line. I'm not necessarily hopeful that we'll get those changes. I can assure you that all London councils are putting pressure on the government to give us strong national power. Short of that, we think we are trying to write in, if that's what people want, if it's the general view, it emerges that people in Whitton in this consultation do not want any more extra concentration, we will try and write some protection into the planning document, in the village plan, as Pamela has said. But I acknowledge it's not as effective as a defence as a national rule, which we'd like to get from the government, but it's it's the weapon we've got, and that's what we're going to try to use together as a community. So the background is, sadly, there's been an open door for these gambling firms for a decade, and society's got to roll that back.
Speaking as a priest in the area, I worry about the fact that there must be market need, and therefore I worry that there is a gambling problem which is both addictive and life-destroying. And I wonder if there's something that we in faith organisations can do to address that. But that's just my own thinking out loud. So. You'll forgive my pronunciation, and we have a question from Helen Gugliari. Or not. Or Gugliari. Perhaps you recognise that pronunciation of this sort.
Perhaps you'd like to read it out. Helen is disabled. She might have made it.
Thank you very much. I shall read Helen's question. What are the plans to reduce the speed limit through the roads of bungalows in Whitton? I address this to Councillor Harrison.
As everybody will know, we're currently consulting on an area basis in Whitton and Heathfield. And the reason for this is that Whitton and Heathfield was chosen as an area to gather views. Sorry, I'm reading from the responses from the head of the Highways Department in Richmond. To gather views because in addition to having received some requests for single streets, the area had fairly defined borders, the borough boundary and the A316. And we were looking to gather some views on an area basis. The reason for that is because so there's two areas where this is happening, Whitton, Heathfield, and also in Kew. And in the Kew case, we had a lot of requests for a certain road. But the law is that when you transition from one speed limit to another, you have to put speed 20 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour signs up. And the Kew geography was such that you have a jumble of street signs, an absolute forest of them, confusedly saying 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, etc. So the point of doing an area consultation is to find out people's views on across an area to avoid this jumbled up speed limit situation, which is confusing and pretty ugly in terms of signage as well. So that's what's going on. One or two people have said it's a plot to raise revenue for the council by catching people out if anything were. If 20 miles an hour were implemented, I need to explain that speed enforcement is totally in the power of the Metropolitan Police. The council has no powers in that direction, and so it can't be a sinister plot to raise revenue for the council because the money wouldn't come to the council. I think that's about the size of it. We have really, as an administration, we have a completely open mind. We actually just genuinely want to find out what people think.
Would anybody else like to ask a supplementary question in Helen's absence? Yeah.
What I'd like you to clarify is if everyone in Whitton votes for the 20 mile an hour limit, does that mean that we have to have humps in the road?
What's being consulted on is this is where the sort of technical department for transport technicalities take over. We're consulting on a 20-mile-an-hour limit, which does not rely on physical measures such as road humps, etc. And it requires respect from motorists to conform to it, rather than physical installation of road humps, etc. The physical bit with the road humps is called the 20-mile-an-hour zone, and many people don't like that, including emergency services and ambulance and all sorts. So what we're consulting on a first pass basis is a limit without physical enforcement. And if anything comes out of that consultation, which would be a proposed implementation, then we consult again on the details of the implementation and what was proposed.
Just again, broadening it out, I mean, I do want to underline that we're not in the business of, you'll see in the Evening Standard again, an attack on councils wanting to make money out of parking and roads. That is absolutely not where the council I lead wants to be. I mean, we're one of the only councils in the country that's actually budgeted to reduce income from parking. As you know, we've introduced where there are controlled areas, not so significant in great parts of this part of the borough, but we're introduced 30-minute free parking. We're giving residents all over the borough reduced parking charges through the borough with the Richmond card. And we're absolutely not going out to chase people for money. In fact, we've announced another freeze on parking charges in the borough only in the budget last week. So there isn't a hidden agenda here. There is a lot of talk in London about 20 miles an hour. Some people say it should just be imposed on everybody. That would cost in itself quite a lot of money. Our philosophy is that you should ask people what they want, and if people want, then we listen. So because we're consulting on this village planning process here in Whitton and Heathfield at the moment, it saves your money and time, and it's efficient to do a consultation in this area. It's not that Whitton has been picked out, or Heathfield's been picked out, or Kew has been picked out. It's just easier to do the consultations at the same time. But as Chris said, we have an entirely open mind about this. It turns out this is very, very popular in this area. Well, then we will act on what people ask for.
Ladies and
Can I just ask on behalf of the other side, if the people of Whitton do not want a 20-mile-an-hour limit, will the existing humps be removed?
Well, that's an interesting thing. You'd have to specify where the humps are and where they're causing trouble. I mean, obviously, I couldn't answer that question. What I on the specific humps, what I can say, obviously, if the people of Whitton say they don't want the 20 mile an hour, the 20 mile an hour will not be imposed by the council I lead. I understand that the others have a different view, but doubtless that will be an issue at the election. This isn't a political meeting, this is a community meeting, so I don't want to go into what one party thinks and what another party thinks if we can avoid it. But if people say no, we'll say no. If there are road humps which people in a road have come to think are unnecessary and are dangerous or whatever, I'm sure that Chris Harrison's officers would have a look, but you'd have to let Chris and the council know about a specific road.
A question from the gentleman in the green jacket.
Thank you. Just an aside to the 20 mile an hour speed limit. I live in Cypress Avenue, and since the traffic flow in the High Street has changed, we've a significant increase in rat running. Are there any plans to try and avoid this by any means, speed humps or right turn off the bridge, off the High Street into Bridge Road to take that way? I'm backed out of the drive this evening to come up here. and I had to sit on the pavement, wait for 4 cars to come from one direction, 2 from the other direction before I could move out, and that was it, 6:45. Thank you.
Can I ask, if I give you a business card, if you're staying to the end, or I can ask you to now, could you put that in writing to me, please, and we'll get officers to look at it, and we can do a traffic count, put vehicle counters down there, and just check what's actually happening. So we'll have a look at it. If I give you my contact details.
A question from Helen Noble, please.
Can you hear me? I wish to bring up the subject of public lavatories in Whitton. And when you read the email I sent, on the 22nd of Feb 2014, once again, and this is a regular occurrence, the found dilapidated and smelly public lavatories adjacent to Whitton Library on Library Way were closed once again when the Six Nations rugby match was taking place. If you ring the number on a piece of paper on the door at the weekend, who is there to take the call and take action? No one. Otherwise, the only available community toilets is one in the Parisian Cafe, and I understand in the Golden Grill. Otherwise, this beggars belief, you've got to go to the cemetery. The situation is a regular occurrence and far from ideal. With the World Cup coming up, there will be a great need for decent 21st century lavatories. I always feel that it's a somewhat sidelined and ignored subject. What are the proposals for 2015? You'll have all these tanked up rugby fans arriving in Whitton, and there'll be queues miles long in the 2 cafes, which is not possible. Now, I was told today that the lock on the door of the public lavatories are closed, there's lack of paper, it's dirty. And also, I was asked to ask, do the council pay the cafes or cemetery for making their lavatories available? Thank you.
Yes, just to take your last point first, we do have a community we introduced back in 2003, 2004, I'm not sure quite when, but we introduced a community toilet scheme. And cafes, pubs, businesses that participate do actually get a small sum for actually participating. But I'm disappointed to hear you say that this is a frequent problem with that toilet.
Yes.
And that's something. Yeah, but I will take.
Third world country, actually.
I'll take that up with officers, because I was told that on a particular occasion that you're talking about, it was in fact closed because it was blocked and had been due to damage from vandalism. But if you're saying this occurs on frequent occasions, then clearly there's something wrong and we must take it up.
Absolutely.
I can't say more than that's exactly what we'll do. We are actually in the process of looking at increasing the community toilet provision and looking at more businesses to participate. So that will be part of the programme that we'll be doing in Whitton. And there is a general review on sort of public toilets across the borough, anyway, on public toilet facilities across the borough. But it is important with the Rugby World coming up, and I absolutely take your point, and I'll be taking it back to officers. Yeah.
Helen, would you like to ask a supplementary question? Question from our friend in the strike side.
I was going to ask, would the rugby union be helping you with the toilet situation for 2015?
Well, we will certainly certainly we'll be discussing this, will all be part of the plans for the World Cup. I mean, certainly they do, obviously in Twickenham when there are rugby matches. And yes, I mean, this is also all going to be part of the plans for the Rugby World Cup. But I mean, I think that the lady who was talking about the general problem, anyway, aside of the World Cup. But yes, this, you know, we will obviously have to deal with this as a special occasion. Yeah.
You only have to look at me to see that I have an interest in being able to find a toilet sometimes. But got to that certain age. But the rugby, I would like to underline the point that Pamela's made about the World Cup. We've already now convened a meeting, a committee, which involving our officers, the RFU, Network Rail, so on and so forth. So quite clearly this is going to be a major thing. We do hope that there will be positive spin-offs for Whitton, and it's a great opportunity to get our station done, obviously here at Whitton on the back of this, which desperately needs doing. On the specific point, but obviously we will be ensuring that there is sort of massive temporary provision which is put in for all these crowds. But again, as a spin-off, we ought to be able to see if we can revive and revivify the community scheme and see if we can get something done. It's a really important, point, and we'll certainly take that away and we'll look into the specific, as Pamela said. Just to underline the fact, if there is any outlet that is willing to take part in the community scheme, there is a small payment and benefit for taking part.
Question from Mr. Evans.
It's not so much a question as a statement. Those that were here for our police liaison group will know that we've already discussed this, and we discuss it at every police liaison group. The police, their hands are tied. There are no laws that say that you can't pee out of sight anywhere. But what they've done is that they have treated urinating as litter. And not, I haven't got the figures for the last match, but the one before, they actually gave out 130 fixed penalty notices for littering with an £80 fine. So something's trying to be done.
An interesting point that was made, but it's all very well tickets being handed out. If the toilets were there, then there wouldn't be a need for the police to hand tickets out. As far as Whitton is concerned, it's terrible coming out of the station at night. There is no place open. It's all very well getting a ticket for littering the high street at that time of night, but there should be facilities in the high street, especially at the station end.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the pre-submitted questions, and we've kept all of them very well. Sorry to cut one of you off. We've been giving Councillor Hodgins an easy ride tonight, so he's been left ignored. We're now going to enter into a time of open questioning. Where it is possible, I would ask that if you have a question, because there's so many of you, and if you're able to, please to stand so I can see who you are. And I will try and allow a certain amount of deliberation on a point. I would also ask that the questions be on subjects that concern Whitton and Heathfield. There are many issues that surround us in this world, but they must be local issues. And wherever possible, to try and cover territory not already hitherto touched, but I accept that might not be possible. And our first question from the gentleman.
James Cooper. My question is about parking enforcement and about potential lack of balance of it. It seems in the high street that there's an ever-creeping number of protected parking bays, and when normal people want to park in the high street for a quick dash to the shops, we seem to be getting these loading bays, disabled bays, yellow parking, and there's less and less places for actually ordinary cars to park. And I think once this pedestrianisation of the pavement work is done, I think it'll be interesting to review, how people can use the shops, because it can actually affect local businesses. My other question is about actually then enforcement of parking actually in residential streets, because if you go from the Nelson pub to the southwestern pub down Hounslow Road, there are a number of buy-to-let properties down there that have kind of got multiple tenants. And quite often we seem to see people placing parking on yellow lines during the day. And I want to find out whether or not actually the enforcement guys that are going around on the mopeds are actually properly ticketing these people that are blatantly ignoring the rules, often parking right on the pavement so people can't walk past. And actually on the back roads around Coniston and Runnymede, people on the corner there tend to park very dangerously. And I just wanted to make sure that the enforcement people who seem to ignore rules when they're made actually are looking at this and actually giving tickets to people where they need to have it.
I can actually let you know that once the works in the High Street are finished, there will be an extra 18 parking spaces compared to the previous layout. That's not apparent at the moment because many of the bits in the High Street are compounded off because the contractors actually have to have somewhere to put their machinery in, the slabs and all the rest of it. But once it's finished, there will be an extra 18 places in the parking spaces in the High Street. So that's on that point. Again, on a specific issue of parking enforcement in a specific place, may I ask that you send me details of where this is happening, and I will ask our manager of parking services in the borough to send the boys
But
around.
generally speaking, are they enforcing parking in residential streets?
Yes, they are. If you've unwisely parked your car in many parts of the borough, you'll find out. But on that specific situation, if I give you a car, could you point it out to me? And we'll, as I said, we'll get them the lads around and make sure it's enforced.
Sorry to keep butting in. I mean, it's just, I'm told there'll be 18 extra and there will be 3 extra double loading bays, but there will be the extra parking places. If people are encroaching and trying to sort of privatise them, then do let us know. We'll have a look at it. On the enforcement, believe it or not, as leader of the council, I get hundreds, frankly, of emails actually every day. And you'd be surprised how many of them, not that many, but I probably get 3 or 4 every day from people complaining that they're being ticketed in an area that's not controlled. And when you look into it, in 90% of the case, I always look into, obviously if somebody complains about a council service, it's my job to look into it. When you look into it, you very often find that it certainly is our motorbike characters, and it's usually a member of the public who's rung up the office and tipped off. I mean, I saw one in my own ward the other day where we will enforce against the selfish people who park right across the corner, obstructing the way for people who are disabled, which I think is a particularly selfish thing to do. We do have power to enforce that, but obviously we can't have people on bikes storming around the borough all day. We need you to be the eyes and ears, and if you see dangerous double parking, if you see people who are blocking off the passage of disabled people, please let us know. They do go out, but they need a bit of help.
Just to add to what Lord True said, maybe a little known fact, but there is a parking enforcement hotline in the council. If somebody's parked across your driveway or is parked across or obstructing a proper curve where disabled people need to, you can ring that number and they'll be around within a half hour usually. They're not empowered, the council staff are not empowered to tow away the vehicle, but they'll certainly give them what they call a PCA, parking ticket in old speak. So there is a number, and if anybody's interested, I'll look it up and I'll read it out later on in the proceedings.
The lady in the rust-coloured top there.
Very much. I'm not just a cyclist, I also drive a car. And several years ago, I contacted the council about the difficulty of anybody coming out of Powdermill Lane turning right to go to the 316. I suggested that there should be a filter light. There's a filter light to go left, which you don't need from Percy Road. You don't need a filter light there, there is one. We need a filter light coming from Powdermill Lane to turn right. Now, Lord True, you kindly read the letter and you telephoned me and you said you didn't know the area, but you had been to see it and you understood what I meant. This was several years ago, and it is terrible because if I come along Pavement Lane, somebody comes along Percy Road, they're not educated properly with the highway code. They go in front of me, I'm trying to go around them. One of these days, there's going to be a crash if there hasn't been one already. So please, right, well, there you go. If they'd have done what I suggested several years ago, had a filter light to go right, this might not have happened. You do not need a filter light to go left, you do need a filter light to go right. Thank you.
Apologies, I'm going to give you the formal bit and then we can talk. I'm going to give you a sort of formal response from the manager of highways design in the borough. But then once we've got the formal bit, then we'll talk informally about what's happening at that junction, because I do agree with you. It is not, the junction's not right, and it's taken a lot, it needs to be fixed. So here's what our manager of highways design said. The problems at this junction are a combination of issues, partly the carriageway alignment, and that's partly the larger island that went in a few years ago. Now these matters are the responsibility of the council, but the timing and phasing of the traffic signals falls under Transport for London's control. Engineers are currently drawing up options and proposals to improve the alignment with the aim of green measures to be implemented in the new financial year. That's during the year which begins in early April. So that's a sort of promise from the highways function that this will be addressed within the next 12 months. But as this involves liaison with Transport for London, this always puts a delay into the process. It's worth just also saying that the larger islands were initially provided as the junction did not meet the minimum disability access requirements, as the tactile paving could not be provided to an appropriate standard. Any proposed changes will need to consider this as well. That's the disability aspect. As well as how the signals will operate, both in isolation and considering the wider impacts. So that's the formal statement from the council's specialists, but I think the bit of thing I would take from that is there is a promise embedded there to get it sorted in the next 12 months, beginning of April.
Can I answer that? Gentlemen, please let me go.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to add to that. The island that you go from Powdermill Lane, which is the one that blocks all the traffic from overtaking, that's not part of the disabled or access part at all. That island was placed in and it's wrong, and it should be removed or placed back at the original position. The actual junction was created without local consultation. It was just put in. And a letter I received from your highway agency said that they are looking at it and it will be local consultation which will make changes to it. And most people who live in the Heathfield ward totally think that that junction is utter bedlam. To date, I have witnessed 2 car crashes there. One cyclist knocked off his bike, which totally shut down that junction. I've also witnessed one of the children from this school here being knocked over because they have to cross with cars coming from Hospital Bridge Road onto their walkway. So the junction itself does need to be looked at ASAP. And all this talk about you know, we'll get this consultation, we'll have meetings. You're looking at something that needs to be acted upon now and not 5 years down the line.
Gentleman, stand up there, please.
I'm Alan Bailey. I live in Heathfield, right on the edge of Heathfield Ward. The house is right next door. What I'd like to bring up is where the road alteration has been at the top on the shops between the Duke of York and the shop at the end, where the pavements are now wider than the road, and where the buses, one of the bus stops has been put, not set back from the pavement, but been put where the pavement has been projected into the road, so that when a bus stops, all the traffic is lined up behind it. Now this is a major artery in the house road from the M3, and you get down there, any time people going to work in the morning or at night, you cannot overtake. The traffic is just lined up all the way while nobody can overtake the bus. And if two buses get there, you've had it. No consultation whatsoever has ever been done about asking us what do we want. We don't want 20-foot, 25-foot wide pavements there. There's no need for it. You talk about the 20 mile an hour, you don't need 20 mile an hour there because you can't do it. Quick Rice Street is exactly the same. You put these alterations in without any consultation with us, and a complete waste of money in this time of austerity.
Could I ask the gentleman which street you're referring to, please?
I live down the end of Harvey Road, and I'm also associated with the Neighbourhood Watch. And I speak to my neighbours, and they all say it's a complete waste of time and money down there. We could well do with our pavements doing down Harvey Road. There's 380 odd broken and cracked pavements down Harvey Road. And I've been fed up with writing to the council for the last 4 years trying to get them done, considering most of the residents around our way are old age pensioners or in their late years. Harvey Road is only one pavement, it's only one side, because the other side is the railway and it's grass. So you can see what the situation is.
Thank you for clarification.
Just would like to look at the details of a particular location, but I'll make you aware of another fact that you may not be aware of. I'm sure you won't welcome this particularly as information, but London Buses and Transport for London have total control over the way they operate their buses. And the latest guidelines for them is that bus stops should not be put in a lay-by. You put them in the main carriageway. Because they have difficulty, if you put in a lay-by, they have difficulty pulling out it. We are not masters of our own destiny here. They call the shots on what they do, and it's based on how they can get buses around the network fastest. So that may lie behind what's happened there on those
Why
sides.
narrow the road? Why narrow the road?
Well, if that's the case, do away with it, guys. Do away with the pavement that you projected into the road, then you'll have a You don't need them straight guys in the parking because people park there and they're restricting the traffic anyway. Do away with these projections into the road and make the road wider than the pavement so that traffic can get moving.
You made the point very strongly. So I mean, on the buses, Chris has said the buses are, we don't control traffic light times when we don't control the bus thing. I don't want to bat off. What's the council's job is the council's job. What's TfL's job? It's unfortunately TfL's job. If there are bus issues, and nobody's surprised, we've not had one 10 there are issues. I'm sorry we won't talk about meetings, but the only way of getting at TfL is to actually bring them along and have them actually meet people, because which they do from time to time. But that's a largely unelected organisation. I mean, it theoretically reports to them there, and if we can get them held to account more, we'll help you do that. On the specific issues you've raised, I mean, powder mill, there's a lot of concern about that. I accept that, and Chris said that that's already being looked at by the engineers. We will take away the message that you've given us, that you would like that to be accelerated as quickly as possible with proposals. On Hamworth Harvey Road, we'll take away the points that you've made. And we'll talk to the traffic engineers who come up with these things. That's what this meeting's about. It's not for me to say, we know it all and you know nothing. I said right at the start, you're the people who actually know about this community. That's why we're here to listen. So we will take that away and we take a note of it ourselves. But obviously, Chris, at the end, we need to give out some kind of a contact point. And Ellie, we need to have a contact point where we can report back to the public so they can hold us to account of how we respond to these things. So I don't want people to go away and think, well, what's actually going to happen? So before the end of the meeting, we need to be able to somehow make that clear how that's going to be done. Can we do that, please?
A question from the lady with the nice glasses on top of it. Yes, you have. Not you.
Oh, right. I've got quite a loud voice as well when I get there. My name's Martin Rivers. The question that you've just answered doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The bus stops have always been there. It's the roads that you've narrowed, it's the carriageways that you've narrowed. It's nothing to do with TfL, it's about you narrowing the carriageways. Same in the high street, you've narrowed the carriageway. Gentlemen over there, you've narrowed the carriageway. The bus stops have always been there. Don't bring TfL into it, concentrate on your things.
Perfectly fair comment. I was just simply making the point that where there are bus stops and buses around, TfL have to be consulted and have the final say. You don't want the carriageways narrowed or want more pavement, want pavement to be wider, then that's something that we can discuss as a community. On the Whitton High Street is a different issue. We can come on to the Whitton High Street if you want. But on the particular road, particular areas you've been talking about, we've taken a note and we will look at that. And I personally haven't given any instructions, but you're giving me some instructions. Get out there, council, and have a look at it. Okay?
Just want to move back to the top, please.
My neighbour of 88 managed to lose 3 teeth by tripping over an uneven pavement down my street, which is in the Heathfield ward. My question is, what Conservative ward actually won the pavement lottery?
The answer to that is absolutely direct. No ward won the lottery. Neither, and I haven't brought politics into this, but it's up to you to decide what political stand go on wards, and you'll have your chance on May the 22nd. But I can tell you that there is not a question in anything to do with this about political alignment. On the pavements, the reality is that for a generation in this borough we haven't spent enough on the repair of pavements and the repair of roads. We have potholes, we have 250 miles odd of pavements which haven't been properly cared for. We just patched them up when people have complained, come along, put a bit of tar and made a change. Since we were elected in 2010, we promised that we will start to get round the pavements and roads of the borough. That's going to take decades, actually, with the backlog that there is. We've already put £3 million into repairing pavements, and we just committed some more in the budget. What you call the pavement lottery was an innovation that we made, which you may or may not like. It fits with the philosophy that I believe in, which is that we ask people to identify roads where there are specific problems and issues. We've actually had a tremendous response to that, and of course there are far more than we can get out and do at once. I'm not kicking you and saying, I'm not going to stand up and say, well, we'll get round next year and do that road and that road. It'll take a long time, because we've spent nothing as a council for a long time. It's quite wrong. What we are doing today is going around bit by bit. So residents were enabled to put forward roads for nomination. Previously, what happened was that officers took the decision on the basis of how much roads were used and whether there was a record of accidents in the road, which is why people cynically used to say, actually quite rightly to the council in some ways, you need to have somebody killed here to have something done about it. That is actually the way in which decisions were taken. And of course safety is a priority. But what we wanted to do was try and bring the public in from the cold, and it's a risk for us because people like you say, or rightly say, why aren't we doing it this year, next year? Will it be never? It won't be never, but it will take time. But surely the public should have the chance to say. So roads are being repaired and pavements actually all over the borough, and that will go on. It doesn't mean there won't still be some roads which are done by the officers, but I'll give you an example of yes, there was something. If you call Sheena Conservative Ward, I did have a little road got done in my ward. It was a funny little road at the back of a line of shops, which was in a disgusting state. People living in small flats, some of the most disadvantaged people in my borough. Nobody in my ward, no traffic officer was ever going to say that road needed to be done, because no cars ever went down it. With this scheme, those people were able to put forward and say, please have a look at our road, and they went along and looked at it, and it's a very small thing, and that one managed to get through. So there will be, it's not the question of things going to one place or the other. On the old folk, if I can call them that, I don't want to mean that in any disreputable or disrespectful way, because I believe that the people who've served our country longest, the oldest generation, deserve the most, actually, in my simple way of looking at things. I would like to see if we can evolve towards a way where I had hoped that we'd be able to do that, find what I call pensioner preference, that if there were areas where there were particular high numbers near homes and so on, that we could find ways of actually prioritising pavement repairs, not doing a whole road, but doing small areas to make them safer. We haven't quite got the system in place doing that yet, and I think that's disappointing to me. I hope we can work and do that, but I do think that safety for older people is absolutely critical. It's not as the pain to the individual, the pain to the person, the pain to the family that is the main thing. But even if you look at it in terms of cost, I hate this accountant's way of looking at everything in cost, but if someone falls over and breaks a hip and has to go into a hospital, apart from all the trauma, what does that cost us as a society in a place? So, you know, if there is somewhere where you're particularly concerned about elderly people in peril, again, please let us know, and we will try and look at it. We're not getting everywhere we should, but sometimes you have to take the risk and admit we can't get everywhere, but we do want to get around.
Well, can I just say on that point, going through the council's website, you get absolutely nowhere, but if you go on the reported website and report it via that, in 3 days' time, the actual road is done and the pavement's actually been corrected. So it's kind of strange that by going through a council website you get nowhere, but going outside and where people contact you from, I think it's a TfL website, a reported site, you actually do something. You just type in report it and then you get a link to it. What's the site? Report it.
Well, if that's true, it's not acceptable, and at the very least there should be a direct link with one of them, maybe the TFL, but I don't know the answer to that question. I'm very concerned by what you say. and we've got somebody who deals with the web who's actually listening in, and they will go away and look into that point, because it should be through our website. I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
The lady in the white blouse by the radars.
Thank you. I do a voluntary work for Whitton Restroom at the back of the High Street, which is next to the library. We would like to know if you're going to demolish the library at the back of the High Street and put this somewhere else. We've been running this coffee shop for pensioners, and I believe not a lot of people knows this, but this coffee shop, a lot of pensioners, local pensioners, and they really need this coffee shop. And I believe we need more support from you, and we need to know, because all the pensioners locally, it's quite an important part of the community. And I believe they're very concerned, where will they go once the library disappear and down in the High Street? Would we be part of this if you do take away the library, please? Because they're all very worried, and I do give a lot of sympathy for them, because they go there every day, Monday to Friday. We're open from 9 to 12, because the daycare center is not open every day, and we are open from 9 to 12, and they really appreciate this place. And without this, the local pensioner will really be hit hard, and I believe this is very important for Whitton community to have this coffee shop, please. Thank you.
Well, I think the first thing is to thank you for providing such a service for the residents of Whitton. It sounds as if it's hugely popular, and thank you for making me aware of it as well.
It's the cheapest coffee in town.
Hopefully the quality
Plus biscuits.
With regard to Whitton Library, there has been an ongoing view to look to move onto the High Street as a way of hopefully anchoring another site to the High Street and improving the High Street. The difficulty we're having is actually finding the right site to move to. But that doesn't mean that if and when we move, that hopefully we will make sure, and please come and see me afterwards so I can get your details, and we can make sure that if there is ever a move, that your service and your facilities are safeguarded as part of that move.
Thank you. We will appreciate that, and I will update them tomorrow.
Okay. Please come and see me afterwards.
Can I make clear that there is, if you go and look at the board outside, you'll see in the draft village plan, there is no question of the library being closed or demolished, as you put it, unless an improved and better facility is put in place, which you made a strong case that would be a facility of the part of it. If you look at the back of the area behind Iceland, where the library is, where the back of Iceland car park area, and the area, the car park behind, you could say that space could actually be better used and better designed if you could get everybody together. And that's really what the thinking is. If we could discuss as a community with the operators to actually get that space used better, not losing parking space, but actually out of that being able to find a sustained and hopefully improved library, then that would be worth looking at. But we're not going to go off, I can assure you, and sort of sell off that site, demolish the library. That will not happen, and it's on the board there, it's in the plan that we will not move unless there's an improved site. But I can see quite a few people nodding in the room and say they do think that space at the back perhaps could be better arranged. That's the long-term thinking.
Lady with the grey top, standing up.
Hello, I live in Montrose Avenue, and in case you don't know where it is, it runs from Hospital Bridge Road down to Percy Road. A couple of issues there in that we're very close to Whitton Station, and we get a lot of commuters. They actually park from one end of the road to the other, not always considerate parking. The other thing we're inundated with is we're on the route for learner drivers and for the driving test. So from usually about 6:30 in the morning and in the summertime till 9 at night, we're inundated with learner drivers. I've gone down Montrose Avenue and passed 7 of them, doing U-turns, doing 3-point turns, and they're trying to do it where there's commuter parking. The other thing is, when our road was, and badly resurfaced, there were no yellow lines put at the top of Rycroft Avenue. They are at Strathern, which is the other road that leads into Montrose, and there were no double lines put at the end of the road where the island is. The Bats people park on the island on the double yellow lines at the island on the Percy Road end. And you're right, the people from the council, I do have the number, and every time I phone for the parking people to come, when cars park on the footpath on the corner of Rycroft, they're there within 10 or 15 minutes and they put a ticket on the car, so they're very good. But what we actually need is double yellow lines at the top of Rycroft Avenue on both sides, because it's very hard to get into Montrose Avenue from there. And we need white lines so that the commuters can curb park like they do on Rycroft Avenue, and that seems to work really well.
I'll make a note of that specific location, and we'll look at the yellow line reinstatement. And while we're talking about the enforcement people for the council, I don't know if you've got pens and paper handy, but I would like to just give you the number of the enforcement people, which is, so this is London Borough of Richmond, parking enforcement. If somebody's parked across your driveway or what have you, it's 020 8744 0462. 8744 0462. Thank you. And I have made a note about that specific location.
Was that last digit or
0462.
Is there an extension to that, or that gets straight through?
No, it goes straight through.
Mr. Evans just wants to add.
On the question of parking, this gets raised very often at the police liaison group. You must realise that you can only not park on double yellow lines. All the single yellow lines are only there for rugby days. So you'll find that people are parking on single yellow lines and no one will stop them. It's purely for rugby. And this question of parking across the drive comes up quite regularly, and the Borough Commander actually said that you cannot enforce people parking in front of your drive unless you are seen to want to come out. You can't come back home from work, find somebody parked across your drive and you want to go in. It's only if you want to come out. It's a ridiculous rule. So don't get into any really serious arguments with anybody.
My response to that, there may be a difference in perspective from the police, because the police are very often asked to tow a vehicle away. That may be the rules that govern what they do. However, the borough can certainly give a parking ticket to whoever's inconvenienced.
Also add, we're coming along and we're getting some very important specific issues to raise, like the double yellow lines that were spoken about. I mean, papers have been circulated. If you want to give an email address to be kept updated, the officers will collect, and there'll be a place at the back of the hall to sign. I want to give you a total assurance that that is for council use only. That's nothing to do with any kind of political email collecting exercise, because I know that all these things go on, the different parties asking you to sign this, that and the other, and they only want your emails. If you give the emails to the officers there with things that you want responses to, that will be dealt with by officers and not political parties.
A question from Mrs. Swan.
Quite different from all the others, and it might seem quite minor, but it's still... My question is quite different from all the others, and it might seem quite minor, but it's about planning. I'm very aware that most of Whitton is 1930s properties, and there have been quite a few inappropriate extensions, things like large roof lights that are visible from the street. Fine if they're not visible, but what's the sort of planning view of keeping 1930s architecture? Doesn't always have to be big things, maybe front walls just rebuilt in the original style, and the plannings for many of the properties are online anyway. Just want to know what the views are for keeping 1930s. They can't be all, the whole street probably can't be listed, but it is important to keep streets in.
Yes, well, I absolutely, thank you for the question, and I absolutely agree. And of course, that's exactly what the supplementary planning documents that we're doing, and the various consultation events, and indeed there was a walk as well, with officers going around identifying the various character areas. So I don't know whether you blessed have had chance yet to look at the draft supplementary planning documents. It is online, it's an online consultation. There is a drop-in event at the Whitton Youth Zone on Saturday between 10 and 4. But please look, because this is exactly what it's about. It's protecting the character, and it has various character areas. And that's what we want to do. I mean, the Whitton and Heathfield are areas of enormous character, and that's what we want to preserve. And so that when developers, or indeed an application goes through planning, or indeed when somebody new moves into a road, they have some idea of what the style and what the character of that road is, so they try to conform. So, yeah, thank you very much for the
I'm part of the Bridal Residence Group, which is Bridal Gardens, which you don't know is a small cul-de-sac going towards the Hounslow border. We've been very, very successful in sort of an associated point, actually, in fighting off these buy-to-let landlords that are kind of invading Whitton en masse, where they're buying houses up, converting them in various guises into sort of, quite substantially habitated multi-tenant properties with often multiple cars outside, properties often run down, and all those nice things that go with it. And I think the question you've asked is kind of associated with that, because the Village Initiative that I know that is going on, and Gareth Elliott's been involved in that. What I'd like to know is really, to what extent is the Council committed to try to preserve the family-based character of Whitton, because I think this kind of erosion of this buy-to-let invasion is very corrosive to the quality of the community, the kinds of people that live in it, and it's kind of it's a social debate, but I think we all choose to live here because we want to keep it the way it is. And I'd like to know what the Council's planning is to protect people like us that have frankly fought off these people quite successfully, and we do appreciate the support of the Council in that, but we're a small minority in our road. I know there are other areas that don't have that cohesion for residents, and it'd be good to know the Council really wants to protect the area, maybe it's part of the Village Initiative, or maybe just doing some other things about it.
Really, I mean, it is very much what I was saying before, because with these supplementary planning documents, the whole point about it is that when developers come along, they will know what is the character and what is acceptable in that area. It does mean that when an application goes to committee, the planning committee, and indeed our own officers, again, will take into account what is in that supplementary planning document, And, of course, if a developer, as they so frequently do, appeals, again, this will hold up when it goes to appeal to the government inspector. So, I mean, that's the purpose, and that's what we're doing, to try to protect.
I mean, one of the problems we've got in our roads is that these guys are professional gamblers. They will basically have property estates of, maybe dozens of properties. A particular gentleman whose name I won't mention, but owns properties across Richmond that has a place in our road. He's a serial gambler on the property laws. He'll often flout the planning legislation. He has deep pockets. He can pay legal fees. He can pay fines. And I know there's only a certain amount that the council can do, but we're very minded that, although we've been successful, we'd like to see much more robust laws in place to really protect the conservation of the area, but also therefore protect the usage of properties, because these guys really are business people, and they're not there for the quality of life. They're just there to make a fast buck, and they don't really care about the communities they're developing these houses in.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very important point, and I know it is a problem in this area. I'm afraid I haven't paid off my first mortgage yet on the only house I've got, so I have got sympathy with these characters that seem to have about 10. But it's perhaps we should. I know it's something we've been talking about for some time, that this is going on. Getting a handle on controlling it. You say these characters are very fly at getting past the system. And I think we need to have a look at the ways in which we can probably try and see if we can get a sort of mini task force to head off and look after some of these things. I personally believe, as far as the character is concerned, as Pamela said, I mean, the whole point really of having village plans which are going to be sort of designed and evolved, and it won't be a one-off thing. Once we've got it, we can revisit them, is to actually enable communities to protect those things that are important. The character of localities is very important. Most people take real pride in their houses and their homes. It's the biggest investment we all make. You make the effort, and it's really, really annoying when people seem to come in and get away with things and spoil it. I feel particularly strongly about it. As you may know, I led a big revolt in Parliament against the government to stop a stupid plan the government had to take away neighbours' rights to object to large extensions next door. I don't know what idiot thought that one up. But we managed to defeat that, and you'll be amused to know that the first people supporting me in the queue in the lobby in the House of Lords were Neil Kinnock and John Prescott. I hadn't thought I'd have those two behind me very often, but we really do need to, I think people would accept construction and new building better if it fitted with the community. I think that that's what this approach is about, so that all sides know. Now, given the fact that we've got at the moment that the national law is very lax, I can't say that we'll be able to stop everything. I don't fool people. I mean, it's not going to be the planning committee can suddenly turn around and say no. But if we can build into the supplementary planning document in this jargon, the village plan, that this is what is preferred, it gives the planning committee a handle to say we are rejecting it because of this adopted plan by the people of Whitton and by the council. And then it's one bit harder for the national inspector to overturn it, because of course these developers can always go and appeal to the national inspector. So the 30s character is really important. You know, I know Whitton High Street's luckily found the works have gone on a really long time. I think the lights are great and things have changed. I think the new trees will look good. It's a wonderful 1930s High Street, actually. I mean, shouldn't they be filming the next Poirot series if they ever do one? They should be filming it in Whitton and Heathfield, actually. It's a wonderful community. So, I know other people want to get in, but it's a really important point. It's a big issue, and we'll do what we can.
She's been incredibly patient, the lady with the cerise scarf and the butterflies.
My name's Jane Ferg, and I live in Crane Park Road, which is down by the Hospital Road roundabout. We live in a cul-de-sac, which is a community within the community. Not many people actually know the road is there. However, for some years we have been trying to get the fence, the chain link fence, which is between us and the road, both Hospital Bridge Road and the A316. First of all, we wanted it repaired. Now it's gone beyond that. It needs to be replaced. We have had communication with various councillors. One of the members of the panel has had a copy of some of these emails as well and is aware of it, and we just would like a commitment that actually something will be done about this. We have been knocking our heads against a brick wall for years about it.
I'm sorry this meeting didn't take place a week later, because it was actually on the agenda for my fortnightly operational meeting with highways officers for next Tuesday afternoon. So if you'd like to take a card at the end of this, I'll get back to you, but I haven't had a discussion yet, so I can't really comment. It's on the agenda.
Another impatient gentleman at the front with a white shirt.
Hi there, my name is Daniel Kelly. Perhaps a question for Councillor Harrison regarding the 20-mile-an-hour consultation. Sure, it's a question perhaps for Councillor Harrison regarding the 20-mile-an-hour consultation. To help Whitton residents make a better informed decision, would it be possible to upload perhaps onto the council website statistics, road safety or road traffic accidents to help us eliminate perhaps mass hysteria and look at the facts really to see, make a decision based on fact?
I'm not sure of the technical constraints on that. All I can say is that we do have people from the council's web team here tonight, and we'll look at that. The systems that these statistics are held in, I'm not familiar with. I don't know how easy it is to dig out the information and get it onto graphically or whatever onto the council website. So all I can say is, Ellie, we've got people, so we'll look and see if we can do it.
Yes, I mean, we can't promise it, but there's a big decision here, and I've given a guarantee people are not going to be railroaded into a 20 mile an hour if they don't want it. This is a genuine consultation, so if there's information that we can get onto the site, we should get it onto the site, and that's what we will take back and see if it can be done. But I don't sort of do all this stuff, so I can't accept it. It's a fair point, thank you.
We are fast approaching time. I'm going to ask the lady with the floating hat to ask a question. If anybody wants to talk to Councillor Hodgson, please do, but I mean...
Thank you. I'd like to ask about the centre in Britannia Lane and Murray Park. And you may not think there's a connection, but I think there could be. Murray Park has a skateboarding area, so it's therefore attractive to young people. I don't understand why Murray Park Hall wasn't made into the youth centre, because what's happened is that the hall in Britannia Lane, used by people with learning disabilities, many of whom quite literally cannot speak for themselves, they have lost their day centre. They have nowhere to go. And yet Murray Park Hall is sitting there, and that could have been used. What do you have to say about that?
To Derek or whatever to take it on. I mean, on Murray Park Pavilion, we did actually, originally when we were elected to run the council for a period for you in 2010, the then scheme was to do a short-term youth centre in the former Nationwide building. That would have been just a 10-year lease and a wasting asset. So we did actually think at the time, exactly as you do, that Murray Park Pavilion would have been a very good site. But when the youth team consulted with young people, the young people from the area were not particularly happy at that time about that pavilion because there were issues between people from one side and people from the other side and so on. And although it seemed to us on the outside, as to you, that would have been a good solution, they said, could we look for somewhere else? And that's why we came to the Britannia point, where a lot of money's been spent. I'm sure you've been in there. And it's an amazing facility, I think, what's been put together there. But that's why, I mean, it was the young people who were asked, who were not that mad keen at that time, my part. But I don't know, Gareth, you want to...
There's not probably much I can add. Really, because I say that there is already the youth centre that you mentioned. All I can do is ask our officers to have another look and try and see if there is any scope. Certainly, there's already been flagged that there does need to be a new pavilion at Murray Park, so there may be an opportunity there. But it's not an area that I'm incredibly familiar with, so I can't give you an answer right now. All I can do is ask you to give me your details, and I can get back to you once I've had a chance to talk to officers about that.
I'm more concerned with people who have learning disabilities who have lost their resource and they can't speak. Sorry, it's people with learning disabilities who cannot speak, literally cannot speak for themselves. They have lost their resource. And there's nobody seems to be talking about making alternative arrangements for them. I mean, they are people, they are living in our society, and they are entitled, under equality law, to have fair treatment. They don't seem to be getting it, do they?
Yeah, I'll obviously pause, obviously itching to actually answer the question. So I agree, and we will do something about that, and I'll just hand over to Paul.
I'll just say very quickly, let me take that away. It's a very important point. We are doing a number of things across the borough for children with learning disabilities, including looking at providing new facilities at our special schools and adding facilities within our existing schools. But I will take that point away specifically. And I absolutely agree with you on the importance of it.
My final question will be from the gentleman in the blue shirt there, who literally just made it.
Thank you. I'm going to come back to the 20-mile-an-hour zone, if I may. The gentleman here asked about whether there's any safety statistics that can be made available. I'd like to know whether a 20-mile-an-hour zone on an area-wide basis would be statistically safer than what we currently have. On the trunk roads, I think, for irresponsible drivers, if everyone else is doing 20, it may encourage more reckless overtaking, which could be less safe. And on a typical residential road, if you take, when I go to my mum's, I have to go down Rycroft Avenue. It's a narrow road with cars on both sides. I couldn't do 20 miles an hour as a sensible driver on that road. Irrespective of that, several years ago, I think 12, 15 years ago, a young boy living in that road lost his father because someone drove down there at nearer to 50 miles an hour, having had several drinks. So the 20-mile-an-hour zone, to be safer, would need to change behaviour. My behaviour in that road won't change because I'm not doing 20 miles an hour now. And the reckless driver, who's doing well over 30 miles an hour and had something to drink, will also not change their behaviour because you've made it a 20-mile-an-hour zone.
Yeah, there is a big question about enforcement because over these wide areas, as I've said before, the council is not responsible for enforcement, doesn't have the powers to enforce it, and I guess we're not going to get squadrons of new policemen to enforce it. Perhaps a personal anecdote, I actually live in a cul-de-sac and most residents in my road go up and down about 15 miles an hour. Once a month, a man in a Ducati motorbike, bright red, shoots down there in excess of 60 miles an hour. This is in a short residential cul-de-sac. A Ducati is a very powerful bike.
So will changing the speed limit change their behaviour or yours?
Well, that's the only question in this whole equation is of enforcement. It is possible to change culture over time. You know, drink driving laws, that's totally unacceptable. 40 years ago it might have been different. But it is a gradual process, and there is a question mark over how you enforce it, because the old Maverick, you can't legislate for it.
Yeah, but the Maverick is going a lot faster than the current 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yes, I mean, I think that everyone would accept you're raising a fair point and a fair question. I mean, I come back to what I said right at the start, that we're not in the business of imposing a 20-mile-an-hour limit on Whitton or Heathfield or anywhere else. If the view of people is that they don't want the hassle, if they don't think it's necessary, concerned about the consequences, it's your choice. There are other people who are suggesting the council should commit £1 million to imposing 20-mile-an-hour limits in the borough. If that's what the public want to do, then the council can look at that. But I think we should just ask you first. So you have to weigh up all these kind of considerations that are being put forward. In my book, that's democracy. The majority like it. Let's have a look at it. If people say, let's leave us alone, then we'll leave you alone. And we will leave you alone because actually we're going to close the meeting, which I'm sorry about that. But what I'd like to say is how the chairman will wind up, but perhaps I could say a personal thing from me and my colleagues, how grateful I am that you've come and you've given us some challenging questions, a lot of things to look at. We haven't claimed to know the answers. I think it's been really interesting learning thing. I hope we can do it again. I believe in democracy we should do more of these things. When I was a youngster, I used to have lots of public political meetings when people went along and spoke their mind. Everything now seems to be done by spin doctors and emails and not looking people in the eye. Well, I hope you think it's been worthwhile. We've learnt a lot, and I hope we'll try and get at least some of the things which you've raised pursued. It sounds to me like Chris Harrison's got a lot of work coming his way over the next week or so. But thank you very, very much for having us here. It's been very, very good of you.
First of all, my apologies to the easily 15 of you who patiently waited to ask questions and who haven't. As I tell children when I go in to see them in classes, that there's always more than I can answer. Email this lot. Email them. They'll respond. My thanks to Councillors Fleming, Harrison, Hodgins and Evans, particularly for Councillor Hodgins and all that he's offered us tonight. To leader of our council, Will Shrew. And thank you to all of you. I brought my family here to live 2.5 years ago, and I have to say, we feel very blessed to be in Whitton. We don't know Heathfield particularly well because we live in Whitton. It's a wonderful place, and it's because you guys care so much and make your feelings known. So I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight and for being rather well behaved, I think. Don't forget to give your email address out wherever, and have a safe journey home. Thank you very much.